Hello and welcome. It is February 13th, 2026, and what I am about to share with you challenges every fundamental law of cometary physics I have studied in my entire career. 6 hours ago, at exactly 9:14 UTC, the James Webb Space Telescope, specifically the NIRCam instrument, detected a hyperfragmentation event occurring at the core of 3I Atlas. Now, usually, when a comet breaks apart, it is chaotic. It is messy. Large chunks of ice and rock drift aimlessly into the void, but 3I Atlas did not break. It deployed. NASA's Deep Space Network has just finished the initial particle count analysis, and the number they returned is not just statistically improbable, it is chilling. The object released exactly 8.1 billion discrete identical particles. Think about that for a moment. Let that number sink in. 8.1 billion. As of this morning, the estimated human population of planet Earth is 8.1 billion. The ratio is exactly 1:1. If this were a natural event, a thermal disintegration caused by solar radiation, we would see a random distribution of dust sizes. We would see trillions of microscopic grains and a few dozen large boulders. That is how physics works. Entropy creates disorder. But the data from the AMA array in Chile confirms that these particles are uniform. Each one is exactly 4 centimeters in diameter. Each one was released with a precise trajectory, and each one is currently accelerating. This is not a comet shedding its tail. This looks like a distribution system. And the question that keeps me awake right now is not how this happened. The physics of the separation is baffling enough. No, the question we must ask, the question that NASA is currently analyzing behind closed doors, is simple. If there is one particle for every person on Earth, where are they going? To understand the sheer magnitude of this event, we have to look at the timeline, because this did not happen over millions of years. It didn't even happen over a week. It happened in seconds. Up until yesterday, 3I Atlas was just another hyperbolic comet cataloged by the Minor Planet Center. We tracked its orbit. We calculated its perihelion. It was behaving exactly as Newton's laws predicted. A dirty snowball tumbling through the dark. But then at 14 o'clock UTC yesterday, the data stream broke. NASA's Goldstone antenna in the Mojave Desert was the first to trigger the alert. The radar cross-section of 3I Atlas suddenly jumped. It didn't just double or triple. It expanded by a factor of 4,000 in less than 3 minutes. Now, usually, when I see data like that, my first instinct as a physicist is to assume a sensor error, a glitch in the algorithm. But here is where the story gets darker. At 14:05 UTC, ESA's Gaia spacecraft, which maps the galaxy with incredible precision, detected a massive luminosity spike from the same coordinates. And at 14:10 UTC, the Subaru telescope in Hawaii verified the visual spectrum. 3 independent sources, different methodologies, identical conclusion. The comet didn't explode. If it had exploded, the debris would be flying out in all directions, a spherical cloud of chaotic dust. That is what thermodynamics demands. Chaos, disorder, but the Subaru images show something that defies explanation. The 8 billion particles are not spreading out into a sphere, they are flattening. They are rearranging themselves into a perfect two-dimensional disk. Picture this. Imagine throwing a handful of sand into the wind. The grains should scatter. They should drift apart. Now, imagine if that sand suddenly stopped in mid-air and arranged itself into a perfect flat sheet floating against the wind. That is impossible in nature. That requires an external force. When you look at the raw images from the NIRCam, you see this sheet of particles rotating. It is expanding, Yes, but it is expanding with military precision. The distance between each particle is uniform, exactly 15 meters apart. Pause and realize what this means. We are looking at an object that is 240 million kilometers away, organizing itself. And here is what makes this fascinating to me. We are not seeing the spectral signature of ice or water vapor anymore. And the latest spectroscopy reading from the Keck Observatory suggests these 4-centimeter particles are not made of rock. They are metallic. They are reflecting sunlight with an albedo of 0.9, almost like mirrors. So we have 8 billion metallic objects, one for every human being, arranged in a perfect grid. And as of this morning, the entire formation has stopped tumbling. It has stabilized, and now the entire sheet is pivoting. It is turning, and it is facing Earth. When I teach theoretical physics at CUNY, I always start with Kepler's laws of planetary motion. These are the traffic rules of the universe. They are absolute. If you are an object in space, whether you are a planet, a comet, or a speck of dust, you must obey gravity. You speed up when you get close to the sun, and you slow down when you move away. But 3i Atlas is breaking the law. The data streaming in from the European Southern Observatory shows that these 8 billion particles are not just drifting on a gravitational tide, they are maneuvering. Let me put this in perspective. If you drop a rock from a building, it falls. It doesn't decide to hover. It doesn't decide to turn left. But these particles, currently located just past the orbit of Mars, are exhibiting what we call non-gravitational acceleration. We saw a hint of this back in 2017 with the object Oumuamua. It sped up slightly as it left the solar system. We debated it for years. Was it outgassing? Was it a light sail? But what we are seeing today with 3i Atlas makes Oumuamua look like a rounding error. The data indicates that every single one of these 8.1 billion particles just executed a simultaneous velocity change, a delta V maneuver of exactly 3 kilometers per second. Do you understand the energy required for that? To accelerate one 4-centimeter metallic sphere requires energy. To accelerate 8 billion of them at the exact same microsecond requires a power source that we cannot detect. There are no exhaust plumes. There is no heat signature. This challenges the second law of thermodynamics. You cannot have work without heat. Yet the infrared sensors on JWST show these particles are cold near absolute zero. This should not be possible. And it gets stranger. Consider this synchronization. The formation is thousands of kilometers wide. If a command were sent from the center to the edge at the speed of light, there should be a delay, a lag. The center particles should move first, followed by the outer ones. But the tracking data shows zero lag. They moved instantly, simultaneously. This implies one of two things, and both are equally terrifying to a physicist. Option 1, they are pre-programmed. The entire sequence, the deployment, the grid formation, the acceleration was coded into these particles millions of years ago, waiting for a specific trigger. Or option 2, they are communicating using something faster than light, perhaps quantum entanglement on a macroscopic scale, a hive mind that acts as a single organism. I spoke with colleagues at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics this morning. The mood is not one of excitement. It is one of deep, quiet concern. Because when you see 8 billion objects ignoring the gravity of the sun, you have to admit that we are no longer observing a celestial event. We are observing a technology, and this technology has just done something that confirms our worst fears regarding its destination. At 1830 UTC, the grid didn't just accelerate, it dispersed. The particles are no longer flying in a tight formation. They're spreading out. They are widening their trajectory. Calculations from JPL suggest they are adjusting their angle to cover a specific surface area. They are not aiming for the Earth as a planet. They are aiming for the Earth's orbit. They are creating a net. Everything I've shown you so far, the impossible 8 billion count, the metallic composition, the simultaneous acceleration, all of that was documented by 19 o'clock UTC last night. But we are not done. Because what happened just 3 hours ago at 5 o'clock UTC this morning changes the conversation entirely. It shifts this from an astronomical curiosity to a planetary emergency. NASA's Deep Space Network suddenly picked up a signal, but it wasn't coming from the particles. It was coming from the particles directed at the particles. The signal originated from the dark side of the moon. Wait, let me repeat that. We have detected a coherent high-frequency transmission originating from a lunar blind spot beaming directly toward the incoming swarm of 3 I-Atlas particles. We have no assets on the dark side of the moon capable of this transmission. The Chinese Chang'e landers are dormant. The Artemis relays are not active in that spectrum. This signal is not ours. And the exact moment this signal hit the swarm, the behavior of the particles changed again. They stopped glowing. Up until this morning, they were reflecting sunlight, albedo 0.9, but suddenly their reflectivity dropped to near zero. They turned pitch black. Vanta black, they have effectively vanished from our optical telescopes. We can only track them now via radar. Why would a swarm of 8 billion objects suddenly engage a cloaking mechanism? If you are a scientist, you look for a benign explanation. Maybe they oriented their dark side to the sun to absorb heat. Maybe they are charging, but if you look at this strategically, stealth is a tactic, camouflage is a tactic, and here is the bomb that the data just dropped on us. Before they went dark, the final trajectory calculation showed they are not just intercepting Earth, they are decelerating to enter a low Earth orbit, LEO, insertion. They are not going to hit us. They are going to surround us. Let's run the numbers. 8.1 billion particles. The surface area of the Earth is 510 million square kilometers. If these particles distribute themselves evenly in low Earth orbit, that is roughly 15 particles for every square kilometer of sky. It creates a perfect high-density mesh around the entire planet. If this is a shield, what is it protecting us from? But if this is a cage, why are we being contained? The implications are terrifying. If this is a solar shade designed to cool the Earth, it suggests a benevolent intelligence that knows about our climate crisis. But if it is a Faraday cage, a grid designed to block electromagnetic signals, then they are not trying to cool us. They are trying to silence us. They are cutting off our ability to communicate with the rest of the universe. And the timing suggests they are in a hurry. According to the latest velocity vectors from the European Space Agency, the swarm has increased its speed. Again, they are no longer months away, and they are riding the solar wind. Let's establish what we know with absolute certainty. We know that 3I Atlas is not a comet. Comets do not release 8.1 billion identical metallic spheres. We know that the deployment was synchronized with a signal from the dark side of the moon, a region of space we have neglected for decades, and we know that as of 7 o'clock UTC, the swarm has gone dark. It is in stealth mode. These are not theories. These are documented observations from our most advanced instruments. But one question remains unanswered. One question that the scientific consensus is currently too afraid to ask publicly. So what happens when the grid closes? Because the answer determines the future of our civilization. If this is a planetary shield, perhaps designed to deflect a gamma ray burst or a solar flare we haven't detected yet, then 3I Atlas is a guardian. It is saving us from extinction. But if this is the planetary containment field, then we are looking at the ultimate Kessler syndrome. Imagine a cage of 8 billion minds orbiting at 27,000 kilometers per hour. If that grid activates, it destroys every satellite we have. GPS goes down, the internet goes dark, weather monitoring fails. We are instantly thrown back to the 1950s. We become a prison planet, isolated from the cosmos. There's no middle ground, and the clock is running. Based on the acceleration vector I calculated this morning, the swarm is no longer drifting, it is diving. They are initiating orbital insertion not in weeks, but in hours. Right now, as you watch this, tracking stations in Australia are reporting the first atmospheric disturbances. The ionosphere is reacting to the approach of the swarm. The telescopes are pointed. The detectors are live. And tonight, when you look up at the sky, you might notice the stars flickering. You might see them vanish one by one as the grid locks into place. T-A-4 source. The particles are here, and whatever 3 Atlas truly is, and we are about to find out.